So I had the opportunity to sit down with one of my stakeholders, or at the company that I worked at the golf club, to ask him entrepreneurial questions. I've been told he was a successful millionaire who's currently, I think, self-retired, originally from Sydney, who moved up to North Queensland. And I got the opportunity to sit down and ask him questions. And I can't remember the question I asked him. I simply asked, give me advice. Costa, that was his name, Costa. And he told me, there's 3 things, Denzel. Don't learn to drink, don't learn to gamble, and don't learn to take drugs. There's a 4th one I'm going to include as well that he didn't mention, which I'll probably tell you why, but we'll continue. The first one was don't learn to drink, which was ironic because he had a glass of scotch in his hand. He was telling me my journey, alcohol is going to be a massive expense if I choose to spend on it. Now, again, he was saying this while sipping on a glass of scotch. And he told me, well, I need to wind down, Denzel. Again, he told me, don't learn, because these things are learnt. They could be inherited genetically. I was listening to an Andrew Huberman podcast about particularly alcohol, how there might be a genetic predisposition to have alcoholism, but it's usually a trait of the environment you are surrounded by, or even an individual choice. And he said, it's going to be a massive hole in your pocket, which I do sometimes see. Especially in Australia, the not tariffs, because that's in terms of trade, but the taxes on alcohol, it's massive. And he was looking at it at a financial perspective. It's like, how much does a drink usually cost? $9 maybe, 10, 12? Again, depends on the drink. Sometimes you can blow $100 on a night out. So for him, his advice was for someone who's coming up, save all your money and invest. He didn't say that directly, but he implied it. Because why spend it on a pleasure? Why spend it on a consumable that doesn't give you any return on investment except for pleasure? Instead, put it into investments or invest it into yourself. Again, he didn't say there was a moral reason, because again, he was like, Denzel, I'm winding down, I'm de-stressing myself, because that's what most people use alcohol for, to de-stress, even though I think the threshold, I don't think, I heard this from Andrew Huberman, and he mentioned that the baseline for how much stress we can handle decreases the more we consume alcohol. So even though it might lower our stress in the moment, will lower our stress tolerance. So later, the normal baseline amount of stress that we can handle goes down. So then after it goes down and you're experiencing the same amount of stress, you'll probably be more inclined to drink alcohol to de-stress, and then it keeps on going down and down and down. Then you learn to have a dependency that maybe after a long day at work, you go for a drink. Again, it's a learnt thing. So it's better to learn not to cope and to cope without it. Because imagine if you had to pay, I don't know how much, $30, $60 on alcohol just to wind down. Again, to each to their own. Particularly with my choice of not drinking alcohol. It's also for there's health benefits to it. Again, Costa, I asked him from the perspective of purely entrepreneurialism and business and finances. He gave me a business and finance answer. But if you were asking me, it's more of a health reason as well. You want to be in the best physical condition at such a young age. Like for myself, I'm nearly turning 18. Well, actually, I might have turned 18, depending when I upload this video. And to have the body break down and process, I recommend you look up Andrew Huberman or Huberman Lab, alcohol, or the alcohol effects on the body. It's about an hour listen or watch and he breaks down basically it like rewires the neurons in your brains because it's like fat and water soluble, meaning it can be absorbed by the body quite easily because there's like a blood barrier around the brain. So then because it's fat and water soluble, it actually just passes straight through it. Also just ruins your gut health. And I've been told by Luke Belmar that most people are unhappy due to their gut. Again, I haven't done my research. I should have probably done my research in terms of how because Luke claims that most serotonin in the body is produced by the gut, which I can believe because food is fuel. That was one realization I made last year. Is food is fuel. Again, I think Newton's third law of any action has an opposite and equal reaction. That's the same with food. If the body is processing junk food or processing alcohol, which kills good gut bacteria, actually leads to leaky gut syndrome, which bad bacteria is absorbed through the body. In turn, I don't know the effects, I don't know the direct effects of leaky gut syndrome. You probably have to do your own. I should have done my research before doing the video, I will admit that, but again, be my guest, look it up, leaky gut syndrome. Just good bacteria is killed off. Then the liver, because also alcohol is a poison, so then the liver takes a beating, and then it creates the what's the word? Not syndrome. It creates the phenomenon of hangover the next day, depending if the overconsumption. Also, I think for my genetic predisposition, because I'm half Asian, even though I am half Australian, I will believe I won't handle alcohol as well, just considering my Asian background. Because some people, like once they drink like even like one sip of alcohol, they just feel sick because the body can't convert the alcohol in, I think, don't quote me on this, I think it's the ethanol in alcohol into some absorbable compound that the body can absorb, because ethanol is poison. So again, from a purely financial perspective, it's gonna make a hole in your wallet. Don't learn to gamble. Now this one, he wasn't talking about he may have been talking about the casino, but he was talking more about security, particularly if I have a family in the future. Because like, it's a really bad, something I do disagree with my father. He thinks that investing is gambling, but there's a clear difference between investing and gambling. Gambling is the odds of the house. You do not control the probabilities, or you cannot control the odds in your favor. But instead of investing, you can, by positioning yourself in a better position, or entering in a better position, or educating yourself with knowledge. Like, best example is like going into the stock market, is educating yourself about investments, educating yourself about options and shares, doing your research on companies. Like particularly, I think Warren Buffett, he does massive research about the fundamental value of a company. So that's when he invests. Like I think with Coca-Cola, he knows that most consumers of Coca-Cola, they're going to it's a beverage. So it serves a clear need, which is replenishment of thirst, but also the desire and want for a refreshing drink. So then that's why he's like, I can't remember how much of his investment portfolio is in Coca-Cola. Again, look up his investment portfolio, it's like a range of different. But again, he educated himself, put himself in a favorable position to have a favorable outcome. Now with gambling, Costa gave me the example of taking out a second mortgage on a bet on a business, or betting against the mortgage on your house. Again, I don't have some understanding. I think my dad has some understanding about like betting against the equity in the mortgage of your own house. But Costa was saying, which I did understand, is like, if I have a family, the roof over your head is security, and to bet against that security, you're almost like putting your own, how do I put it? Because in some scenarios you will have information arbitrage and position arbitrage to be yourself in a better position, but then this is where like cryptocurrency, that's when gambling happens, because you're just betting or investing on a whim, rather than doing your due diligence and doing your research. So if I go into a deal on a whim, bet against like taking out a second mortgage, and then we lose the house and my family's homeless, that's quite negative consequences to investing, which was actually betting and gambling. And he didn't mention like casino, like going to the blackjack tables or poker. Like, it's learning to not gamble on other people's security or your own security. Which I think I wish he made the how do I pronounce it? The distinguishment. Is that a word? Distinguishment? Yeah, the distinguishment between gambling and investing. Because they're very two different things. And then the third thing is taking drugs, which I think it was very short with this one because he was very elaborate with the first 2 points about alcohol and gambling. And then the third point, he was quite short because like, don't take drugs. It's like, it's obvious. Like, I think he teaches about, it's like Robert Kiyosaki, how your mind is your number one asset. So don't corrupt it with chemicals into your brain or into the body. Because that is the worst thing. Like, if you cannot think straight, if you cannot have a mental clarity, if you constantly have brain fog, if you're constantly itching for your next hit, you are no use to anyone. I think he didn't marry. I'm gonna mention this, 'cause marijuana particularly, like, he didn't mention about it, but I can only assume that he would include it in the don't take drugs category, merely because from what I've heard, actually, again, this is a problem of mine. I just hear it from people and I shouldn't take their word for it, because most of these like influencers, like, they're educated and I just take their word for it because they're educated, but I shouldn't, because I should actually self-educate myself. From what I've heard, marijuana makes you very lazy. Very lazy. And that's like one of the traits you do not want in business or entrepreneurialism. And again, it's about protecting your number one asset, your brain. So putting unnatural man-made chemicals, even though you might argue, oh, it's from nature, like marijuana is a plant, it's from nature, like all that. You have to, again, it's about position arbitrage. It's putting yourself in the best position. Like, money is like a river. You have to be in the flow to receive the most amount. So from a purely financial perspective, again, not from a health perspective, from a purely financial perspective, also the amount of money that goes into drugs. Like, I've been told, like, a small bag of like cocaine's like $300, $400. That's what I've been told, like a small bag. And it's a small hit. Like, you have your high, but then you crash. You go down. This seems like a video ranting about don't put your money in stuff that isn't going to make you any money, which I think is the point. Because most people want to enjoy their life, which is completely fine. But if you want, you have to ask yourself, what do I want more? Something tangible, being on the journey, being on the path up to the mountain, or enjoying the pleasures of life. Short term, yes, it's pleasurable, but long term, again, the health effects of alcohol, probably the financial effects of having a long-term gambling addiction, the long-term health addictions with taking drugs, and also think about your relationships. Like, in business, you're competing with other players. Those are people in the market. You want to have every advantage against them. So particularly, that's why I think I choose not to have those vices, because I want to have that, even that 1% advantage ahead of the rest of the competition. Because I don't know, I think I heard a statistic, who was it? Yeah, Andrew Huberman again, that 80% of the American population, again, I live in Australia, so I should be like researching, we're probably as bad, like 80% of the adult or legal drinking population of America drink alcohol. So if I can just be that 20% that doesn't drink, surely that's an advantage. Again, a health advantage, because I keep telling you, your brain is your number one asset. And you have to take care of it and protect it. So what do you want more? The success, which again you can't control, but do you want the success? Or do you want to live a pleasurable life? Like, it's up to you. You have to have an honest talk with yourself. And now for the fourth one, which you'll probably have seen in the title, which Costa didn't mention, is smoking. I don't know why he didn't mention this. Again, like, I think I remember him like smoking cigars. And again, Andrew Tate smokes cigars. And I'll get to that point. Smoking. At this young age, why? Like, if you're a bloke, like, I don't understand the blokes who can go to the gym but smoke. You're killing your lungs, like, there's no doubt about it. And then vaping's probably as worse as well, because you're putting chemicals into your lungs. And again, this is, from what I've heard, there's different cases and scenarios. Like, I know one bloke, he only smokes when he drinks. And he doesn't like smoking when he doesn't drink, when he's like sober. I'm going into like now a more holistic perspective. Like, smokes in Australia are super expensive. Like, financially, I think they're like $80 a pack. And then most guys, because they can't afford that, they just get pouches, filters, and roll-ups. So they have to roll it themselves rather than having like the pre-made or pre-rolled up cigarettes. And again, they're being phased out and being replaced with vapes because the big tobacco companies are seeing more profit and appealing probably to the younger generation, because the older generation are dying out because of lung cancer and health effects. So if that portion of the market is dying, you might as well try and replace them with the younger portion of the market who can replace them. That's how you do it. For them to target young people is just merely a business decision. They're probably aware of the health effects of tobacco, and they try and be nice and say, we're trying to hinder the health effects of smoking or vaping. But it's better to not do it. It's better to not do it at all than to do it. Like, what are the benefits of you vaping? Because it seems like the only benefit that most people do or have is the benefit of relieving their craving. Because the withdrawal symptoms are bad, from what I've heard. So this is why I say don't learn to do these things, because they're learnt. When someone offers you a vice, sure, maybe try it out. But don't be that guy who goes, I can quit at any time. Because why haven't you quit? Like, have an honest conversation with yourself. You probably clicked on this video because you are aware of your vices, of these probably 4 vices. Maybe the second one, because I definitely know I'm not going to gamble recreationally. But yeah, the 4 vices that most people participate. Oh, I know. Yeah, back to the gambling one. Pokies are extremely bad. It's like dopamine. It's like scrolling on TikTok. You crank the hand level. But back to smoking. You know your vices. You know you want to stop. And again, I feel like there's some social pressure, particularly in Australia, also probably in America, when it comes to drinking as well. Like, I was talking to a mate. He said, I want to stop smoking. And then from what I've determined, the problem of smoking, I actually asked him while he was inebriated, the problem of smoking would stop if I didn't say problem, like that. This is just verbatim, if drinking would stop. And he nodded his head. And I said, why? I didn't tell him you should stop. Again, you don't want to be the guy who preaches. You want to be the guy who asks questions and have him think and lament over it. Like, why not? You don't have to drink. I'm a living example of that. He goes, I can't remember what he said, but probably that feeling of social pressure. Like, again, social pressure doesn't have to be a bad thing, or even a good thing. It's just something that exists. We all feel pressure to do these things because everyone else is doing it. And we're herd animals. We haven't really evolved those million years ago. So if the tribe is smoking, we're most likely going to smoke. If most of the tribe are drinking, we are most likely going to drink. But for you as an individual, you have to work out what do you want more. As I said again, with all these vices, what do you want more? The success or the instant gratification? Because the success isn't going to come anytime soon. Well, that sounds really pessimistic, but what I'm trying to say is the instant gratification is instant, but the gratification of success is going to take a long time, or long term. It's going to be delayed. So are you willing to wait to achieve that success? Are you willing to put off the smoking, the drinking, the taking of drugs, or the gambling? Like, are you willing to put them aside? Are you willing to sacrifice them for a greater goal? Which is probably a video concept I will talk about, which is if you have a goal, you have to make sacrifices. But again, I'm not going to judge you. If you want, again, I'm not to judge how you live your own life. But this is merely how I live my life, which is not participating in those vices. Again, I cannot lie to you. When I turn 18, I think I'm going to the casino with my father, and then we'll probably play some games of blackjack, and that's it. But I'm not going to drink. Even the other night, he said, Denzel might have a sip talking with my mum. I was like, the idea of me sipping alcohol does not sit, again, it has to do with self-identity, which is probably another concept to talk about. You have to have this identity of, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't take drugs, I don't gamble. Because the actions we do align with our self-identity or our self-image or how we see ourselves. Which is the advice I talk about with pornography in particular. So if you want to stop, perhaps get help. Actually, do get help. Do find a support system. But probably another piece of advice is you have to replace these bad habits with something else. Something else. Change your self-identity, and the best solution is actually to not have done it, to have not done it at all. This is why you don't learn it, because once you have learned it, it's pretty hard to unlearn. The best analogy I can give is when I was playing piano, and my piano teacher would emphasize the importance of using correct fingering when hitting the notes, because it's quite hard. Because it's muscle memory. Because once you learn the incorrect fingering, it's really hard to erase muscle memory. But again, just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't try. And if you know it's bad, if you know these vices are bad, again, I'm not talking about financially, from a health perspective, from a relationship perspective. Like, if these things are bad, change your self-identity. But again, don't beat yourself up if you sort of relapse. We're human, you make mistakes. But if you're actively trying to improve yourself, if you see in yourself that these things, don't let these things define you. Don't let them define you, but don't let your mistakes define you. Let your intention to be on this journey of recovery define you. That's my pieces of advice. To not have learnt these vices, which is easier said than done. Also, this is just me on my high horse now, to be honest. Because I don't know what it's like to have drink and then stop drinking, or to have taken drugs and stop taking drugs, or to have smoked and stop smoking. I don't know. But the one last story before I close off is I know my boxing coach. He used to drink. He used to be a chronic drinker. Then he stopped, I think 25 years ago. I think it's all because he replaced the habit of going to the gym, the boxing gym, nearly every day. Again, he probably has his reasons why he doesn't drink anymore. Probably personal, which I do respect. I do respect my coach. But that advice of replacing one bad habit, you have to replace the void with a good habit. Or else, what's that saying? Idle hands are the devil's workshop. You have to be doing something to replace it. And it's particularly hard when you go to social gatherings, when these social gatherings are surrounded by these vices, particularly the drinking culture. Again, what do you want? How badly do you want? And are you willing to be criticized momentarily by others? Or do you care enough of other people's opinion of you or their perspective of you to shun your dreams? Because like my father said, I think last night, again, depending on when you get this video, was, Denzel, don't care for what your mates think of you. You're not gonna drink, you're not gonna smoke. You shouldn't care for what they think. And I shouldn't care. Because for what I care is I'm continually striving to head towards the goal of achieving, being in the best position. Because I cannot control my success. All I can do is do the right thing. Do the right things and do them daily. That is all I can control. And in turn, that is what probably success is. Sure, success might be a number, a million, 10 million. But probably true success is doing the right thing every day and letting the results take care of themselves. So, those are the 4 vices. Don't learn to drink, don't learn to gamble, don't learn to take drugs, and don't learn to smoke. But if you've already learned how to do these things, it's not too late. There's always a chance to redeem yourself, to improve, always. It's just a matter of how badly you want to stop them. But again, I'm not the one to judge. If you can do it in moderation, sure. But if you look at all the health benefits, relationship benefits, probably best not to. But again, it's your judgment. And for my own judgment, I've chosen not to dabble into these vices. So, I hope this video helps.